Darren Shanahan from Avail. He is a broker, and we go back a long ways. He actually originally was one of my dance students, and then he became my rep at RBC when I decided to buy my practice, and now he also sells practices and helps dentists to make the most out of their careers when it comes to the business side.
Yes, thank you for having us. It's great to be on the pink seat. I haven't been on the pink seat before.
Great. So tell me a little bit about Avail and the history of the company.
So Avail was born out of what we felt was a necessity and a need for the marketplace, and a desire for me to want to stay in the dental industry, which is what I fell in love with. The entrepreneurial spirit, just the desire for folks to be professional and own their own practice. Basically closing the gap to being able to say, okay, here's a good value for my practice, here's a properly done valuation, and here's a great transition plan, and how to bring on that new owner.
Perfect. And how widespread is your company as far as working with dentists to broker?
Yeah. We cover Western Canada. We actually cover nationally on the ortho side. We have a broader reach. More orthodontists are referring their friends. So we have an ortho specialty for transition planning across the country. And for general dentistry, we basically have our reps set up across Western Canada. So from Manitoba, Northwest Territories out to the coast. We do love our coastal trips.
Yeah, which is nice, eh?
Yeah.
You can go get some good wine.
Yes.
If we have someone who's, say, in like Montreal or Toronto, and they have a deal that they're looking at a valuation from another practice, would you advise on that as well if they wanted to hire you, or even in the US?
Yeah, certainly. We've actually done Skype meetings to help dentists in the friends of dentists in the States, and we'll do a Skype meeting or FaceTime meeting with them just to kind of help them know where to start, where to go, and what to do in their local market as well.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, we're going to get going into the Ask the Experts part of it, so we're going to start asking you some questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. What is the update on the market right now as far as what dentists can expect?
So what a dentist can expect right now is that we have, on both sides, we have a very educated marketplace. 10, 20, 30 years ago, long partnership agreements or long purchase agreements did not exist. We didn't have as many lease issues. We didn't have as many complexities around financing. And the purchase prices were like $75,000. So buyers now are having to pay $1, $2, $3, $4 million and up for practices. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But basically what we really need, I guess, is everyone to have their group of advisors around them so they understand what's going on in the marketplace.
So what kind of advisors would you advise that people line up for themselves?
Yeah, so really they need to have an accountant, a banker, and a lawyer to make sure that each part of their deal is getting the attention that they need. And in some cases, of course, they also need a lease advisor or lease coach to go along with that to make sure the lease they're signing is going to work for them, for their space for the next 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times, when we purchase real estate, we have our own realtor and someone else has their own realtor, which makes it so that we're getting good advice for ourselves. Now, a lot of times when it comes to brokering, there's the broker for the seller, but there isn't necessarily someone to really help represent the person who wants to buy, aside from the professionals that are backing them up. But is that something that you advise, is having your own broker who can look over the deal and make sure that everything is the way it should be? Yeah,
typically your group of advisors, if they are specialized in dental or medical or whatever profession you're buying into, if they understand that profession, they should be able to give you enough advice around that particular. Obviously, if the bank's not going to finance it, then there's concerns about cash flow. If the lawyer says, you know what, that's too risky from that perspective, you understand your risks, then they need to look at that. And then from the accounting perspective, obviously you want to make sure this thing's going to pay back and that you've got cash flow coming your way.
Right, and typically if the bank's going to finance it, then they're assuming it's going to be paid back well, because the bank doesn't want to take any risks. So
that's right, and they've got great programs, but they also don't want to be an owner of a practice. So those three individuals will help someone mitigate any of the risk kind of going into a deal, because it's a little different than having an open MLS market where I'm maybe bringing someone to a practice from another broker. It's not up on a website, it's not up on an open listing, so that we can start working on both sides of the deal. Having said that, we have worked for buyers who need us to look at appraisals and give them a second opinion along with their accountants as well.
Right. So those services are available if you want your own representation when it comes to the brokerage part of it.
That's right.
Perfect. So if someone is planning to actually sell their practice, and they haven't actually put it on the market yet, and they're going to be approaching you, what should they be doing to prepare themselves to obviously maximize the value of their practice, make the sale as quick as possible, because no one wants to have their deal going on for 2 or 3 years if they can help it. What can they do to really prepare?
So most of the prep work is kind of in the pre-years.
Okay.
The more time that we can get with a seller to kind of help them plan it out, the better they will be when they're ready to go. So all the tax planning will be done, all of their benchmarking will be done. You know, maybe they had an extra staff member that they really didn't need. And it could be affecting their bottom line to the tune of $50,000, which then could be affecting their sale price to the tune of $250,000.
Right.
So it's easy correlations like that we do kind of early on in the game to be able to set them up so that their bottom line is nice and clean, their corporation is clean, they're ready to sell when the time comes.
So how much time in advance should they be approaching you?
You know, I love 2 to 5 years is great. We actually have people approaching us outside of the 5 to 10 year mark, just so that they're kind of planning, okay, well, I want to expand here, does that make sense? I want to add this, does that make sense? If I'm going to rejig this, that, or the other thing, is this going to detract or add to the value of my practice? So we've got some people on kind of on the long plan list, and the more people we get on the long plan list, the better that they end up getting from a sales perspective. They get a quicker sale, they get a better value, they get a higher price for their practice. So we love that because we've got lots of time to plan it out. But you know what, ultimately some things happen and someone says, hey, you know what, I can't practice anymore, I'm having issues, I need to sell. So we can put it together in as quick as 30 days, or you know, we'd love to have anywhere from 2 to 5 years is nice because it gives you enough time to do the changes you need to make.
So when it comes to the parts of the practice that they should really be looking at tuning up, what are some input you can give me on what parts they need to really shore up to make sure that it is as saleable as possible?
You know, one of the things that we find, obviously, having good technology and having a practice that looks clean and is up to date, and it doesn't have to be the most modern practice in the world. It just has to look like it hasn't been let go. That's a big component for buyers because they don't want to buy something that they have to put a lot of money into. So doing that early enough in the stage that you get to enjoy as well. So you're not doing it 3 months before you sell because it's hard to get that money back. And the other side is obviously paying attention to the bottom line. You know, a lot of dentists, you know, we make a good living through the process. So you kind of lose track of where the bottom line actually is because you're writing off courses and cars and different things in your corporation, right? So you get to enjoy those things while we can from a tax perspective. Enjoy that, but then keeping it clean to the point where, okay, I really know where my bottom line is. Because the bottom line ultimately at the end of the day is what a buyer's buying. You know, along with patients and along with the staff, they're buying a revenue point. They're buying a net revenue, and this is what's going to help them pay back their loan. So the better we can make that. So it's things like, you know, watching where rent is going, watching where salaries are going, watching, you know, is my hygiene at the right level? Am I hitting the right benchmarks in terms of my supplies and my lab costs? You know, where am I spending extra money that maybe I don't? Maybe I do. There are certain indices in the practice which indicate where you're heading. So we watch for those types of things when we do our benchmark reviews. So that's kind of what we call also our mid-years, kind of, hey, where am I going? What am I doing? We do a benchmark review for clients to allow them to see where their numbers are at, maybe where they should be, and maybe where they need to take it. Sometimes it's increasing the top line. Sometimes it's just, oh, geez, I didn't realize we were spending that much.
Yeah, and I do talk to a lot of dentists where I'm like, so what is your production versus your overhead? And they're like, there's money in the bank. And if you're looking to sell, that's not the right approach because someone else is not going to be looking at it the same way. That's
right. And it's very common mid-career to be like, yeah, bills are being paid, mortgage is paid, you know, I've got my cottage, whatever, I'm taking holidays, why am I worried about my bottom line? It can affect it can affect your top line in terms of what you sell for up to $1 million.
So if you had a practice if you had 2 practices side by side and they're both billing $1 million and one is valued above that and one is valued below that, what are the parameters that would affect?
Yeah, you know what, ultimately, so it's kind of like 3D chess, right? So we look at it from location, type of practice, are they good hygiene, are they in a great location, is it retail, strip mall, are they older equipment, newer equipment, and then how's their bottom line? So we always turn the practice 360. And when we look at a practice, when someone looks at our valuation, it looks like you're looking at checkerboard. you got it all kind of laid out flat.
Right.
But when we look at it like 3D chess. So we have to look at it from all angles: patients, type of patients, location, lease, bottom line. Yeah.
Things to think about.
Lots of things to think about. Yeah.
Perfect. So now we've talked about owner stuff. Now for associates,
yep.
I know a lot of times if an associate's in a practice, they kind of think they have the inside track to buying the practice, and sometimes they think that they should get a discount on that. Yeah. Is that really how they should be thinking?
Yeah. You know, in the past, some owners have given discounts to associates that they've groomed from a legacy standpoint that they wanted to kind of bring up. And I love dentistry for that, because it is very much a mentor-based industry. When I look across the different industries, there are no two industries that do what dentistry does. You're in competitive competition with each other, but yet they're helping each other diagnose, they're helping them figure out which courses they should go on, and they're bringing these young associates up. And so part of that sort of feeling is like, well, okay, I've been mentored, you know, I've been groomed to take over the practice, you know, I'm hoping I'm going to get a discount on this. The reality is that owner has so many more options today than they used to have. They can sell to a multiple of individuals who will just buy them out, let them practice, let them stay on, whatever they really want to do. So they literally in some markets can choose the height and size and type of dentist that they're working with. You know, they want someone who does more ortho, they can find an ortho purchaser. So they have more leverage today and more options. Leverage is probably not the right word, because leverage assumes that I'm sort of holding something over you. But ultimately, if you're an associate working in that practice, you have eliminated so many risks of something that you're buying. So why would you not pay full value for that? Because if you step outside the doors and look across the street and have to buy that practice on the open market, you're going to have to pay full value for that practice. Personally, if I'm an associate, I might actually pay a premium to make sure that the practice didn't go to someone else.
Because you're getting the inside edge. You know what you've bought into, especially if you've been there for a while. You already know the team, you already know the patients, and you know that the patients are likely going to stay with you because you've been there and they've seen your face before.
You've reduced so many risk factors in that practice by buying it. Why not pay for the full value of it? And some owners may still give that associate a discount, but they have so many more options today that they really deserve to get their full value for their practice.
So as far as the options go, when you are looking at who they can sell to, like it used to be you had to sell to another dentist, but now there's corporations and whatnot out there. Can you give me kind of a list of what their options are as to who they can sell to? Yeah,
so there's like, you know, we've actually done a couple of presentations lately that have sort of, we're showing dentists, what the options are. It used to be sell to the associate, maybe sell to a second buyer, someone moving into the city, use a broker to kind of get the deal done. And now you're getting approached by associates, you're getting approached by smaller groups, and you're getting approached by larger groups. And each of them are coming at you in a different way. So the thing that most dentists are having to kind of deal with now is, okay, well, I'm being approached by 3 or 4 people, maybe I should sell. But what they don't know is when should they actually sell, because they haven't factored in their own lifestyle and what they're looking for at this stage in time. So we actually have been doing more option reviews for those individuals who are like, I've been approached like by 5 different people. I don't know if this is a good price. I don't know if this is a good deal. I don't know what to do. We've been able to show some people, look, based on what you're looking to do, instead of taking 2.5 today, why not take 4 million in 3 years, because this is not causing you a problem. So we go through the whole gamut of sort of timeline, when do they want to retire, when, what are things that are bothering them, do they have a financial issue that they need today, and what is the best then option for them, and then what are the other options, because maybe it's one person who came at them and said, look, I'll give you 2.5 million, and you're like, yeah, that's good. And we walk in after and their accountant says, could I have got more for this client? I said, probably would have sold for 2.9. But by then it's too late.
So again, it's good to line up your advisors and talk to people before you actually get into a full deal, because once you start getting the paperwork done, it can be hard to actually modify anything. Yeah,
and especially for those associates who want to, what am I going to have to pay for a practice? Get out, see the practices, understand valuations, understand the marketplace, and take a couple years to kind of plan that out.
Instead of making a knee-jerk decision.
Oh, geez, this practice looks good, I'm just going to buy it. I don't know if I'm overpaying for this practice. Hopefully if you're buying through us, you're not overpaying.
So if someone's looking to sell their practice and they have all these options. Like a lot of times dentists feel guilty about selling their practice, especially if it's a quick sale. Like for me, when it came down to it, I had an injury and I needed to move on with life. What should they be considering with the person that they're selling to make sure that they get, for them, the right person? For some people, you may not have a choice. You may just need to get rid of it. But if you're making that long-term decision, what parameters for personality and whatnot should they be looking at for who they choose to take over the practice?
Right. A lot of people, legacy is very important, and we actually see and hear this more often than not. Is they built this baby. It's their patients. They've dealt with those patients since they were knee high to a grasshopper, and now they're coming to them with their kids. So they want to make sure that those people are taken care of. For a lot of the dentists we sell for, that is a primary goal for them. So oftentimes it's about making sure the individuals. So in our process, actually, it's not just about the numbers. We actually would like to bring like-minded dentists to that individual based on what their plan is. So you might say to me, look, Darren, I'd still love to practice for 2 more years, 3 days a week. So then at that point, we've got a list of buyers an arm's long in somewhere like Calgary, where you can kind of say, okay, well, geez, there's 5 people here would love to keep you on for 3 years. And 3 of them do ortho like you do it. So this is a great match. You already kind of philosophically think along the same lines. And then they can be sure that their staff are just treated the same way, their patients are treated the same way. And even if we're looking at associates who are buying into practices, it's, even if I don't do everything that you do and do it in the way you do, I'm probably going to want to mimic that a little bit more for those patients to make them more comfortable on that side.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are subscribed to our services, you get the back end of the program, which also means that you get the really good stuff when it comes to In the Pink Seat. So we are going to ask what the juicy pineapple-y dig is with this, and what can you tell me for owners, something that they probably aren't going to hear in the general marketplace or on other kind of podcasts? What kind of inside edge can you give me for owners when it comes to their practice?
So, the biggest misnomer out there for most dentists is they're getting these benchmarks. They're getting these rule of thumbs that are out there in the marketplace. Oh, my practice sold for like 1.5 times net earnings. Or, it was $1,000 per chart. What they really need to know is that ultimately at the end of the day, it's about what they can produce and then what financially they can produce at the end of the day. So the net revenue number will drive their top revenue number. What I should probably clarify there is that the net revenue number will actually then drive the sale price. So gross production is, of course, what everyone kind of thinks, okay, I'm doing $1 million, my practice should sell for, and whatever that number is, whatever their accountants told them, maybe they've seen 4 deals, maybe their banker has seen 5 to 10 deals, so they think it should come around this price. Maybe their sales rep has seen 5 or 6 deals, I think it should come here. Ultimately, we see 50 to 60 appraisals in any given city a year, so we really get a sense of, okay, well, that $1 million practice, where does it actually sit? And give them the straight goods on where are they profitable, are they not profitable, how is that impacting, are they going to sell at $800,000, are they going to sell at $1.5 million, what is it really there? These rule of thumbs, unfortunately, do more harm than good. They give people just a little bit of insight, and unfortunately what it may do is you may sell your practice for less, thinking, geez, well, I only could have got 1.25 for it anyway, so I'm right in line. When actually they maybe could have sold it for 1.5 times net earnings, or gross earnings, sorry.
Okay, and the difference between going from the benchmark to what they could actually get from it, how do you have different insight for them versus maybe what their professionals like the accountants and lawyers are telling them?
Yeah, the problem, and their professionals are doing a great service because this is what they've seen. Where it's more like when I come to you for a treatment plan, you've seen 150 of these. So where we kind of have a broader scope is we've seen the 150 and we can say, undoubtedly, we know this person in this marketplace will go for this price. Whereas the individuals who maybe have seen 4 or 5, they may be scattered off in different areas, and that sort of becomes their norm. So our advantage for them is that we've actually seen more, so we can actually say, yes, in Northwest Calgary, a retail strip mall practice will go for likely in this regard. Now, that same practice doing 1.5 million, 2 practices doing 1.5, gross production or dental production, including hygiene, may sell for different prices, just because they may have a different bottom line.
Right. Yeah. So if, say it's a buyer's market, so there's lots of practices out there, this has happened before, sometimes it's a seller's market, sometimes it's a buyer's market. How can they be a pineapple in the market so that they're going to attract the most number of potential buyers, even though the market is saturated with practices for sale?
Yeah, so one of the things is about working with the right broker who has a broad reach of different buyers, because that buyer really, all you need is one.
Right.
Everyone thinks you need 20, right? I gotta have 20 buyers, it's gotta be a bidding war. Yeah. Ultimately, all I need is one buyer to buy my practice who's willing to pay that price for it.
Right. And
that's your kind of secret sauce in that, from that perspective, because the broader reach you have, the more buyers possibility you have.
Right. There's often a lot of the buyers are talking to all the different brokers, right? Yep. So how do you work around that?
We encourage all the buyers out there to work through all the brokers, because of course it's not an MLS listing, right? But what we happen to attract, I think, from what we've seen, is that people want to deal with people who are trying to connect people on the other side. Right. So we're more about a high touch, high introduction. We want dentists to work with dentists through the transition, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's going to be the two dentists that are going to make the deal. We help facilitate the deal, but we need two people that are going to get along and work together for 2 or 3 years, and we need to make sure that that's going to work. So we have a bit of a higher touch reputation in terms of we talk and screen and work with every single buyer that we have on our list. So they get contact information from us. They get contacted regularly, and we know more about them. We take the time to learn about our buyers to make sure who's going to be the right fit.
Right, so you're not trying to have a hamster wheel of 20 buyers going through their practice. You're trying to find the right buyer for them.
Yeah, you just don't want to spin off 20 people to walk through the practice where 15 of them really would never be the right fit anyway.
Right. Yeah. So for owners, how can you help them make the decision to pick the right broker? Like obviously, they're in Western Canada, we want Darren. But if they're out of your reach as far as brokering, what qualities should they be looking for in a broker to make sure that they try to find the right buyer, they get the deal done as fast as they want it done, all that stuff, and get the most value?
You know, I think testimonials are a great key. I mean, generally, you're going to want someone who your friends have worked with, who they've seen success with and have had hands-on. We're always happy to provide. We have put all our testimonials on our website as well, and then we also have a list of individuals who they can talk to. Most thankfully, in the 8 years or so that we've been doing this, most of our business comes from word of mouth and referral from other people who had success anyway. So our encouragement is you obviously want someone who's got experience, who understands the local market, who's got deep connections, and can really explain and walk you through the process. Because as a seller, you need to be ready for everything that's going to come at you in a practice transition. So you really need to be not just working through this as you go through the deal. We take the time to go through it with a seller to make sure they understand what are the big rocks in a deal that they've got to be prepared for, so they're not blindsided partway through a deal. Oh, what do you mean I've got to give up a restrictive covenant on this? I was actually planning to go work for my buddy who's 2 blocks away. How's that not? Yeah,
and it's funny because a lot of times people get into deals and they're so overwhelmed with all the details, they quit looking at the details, and then they're in trouble later on.
Right.
So you help try and take off the blinders for them?
Yeah, so we really want to just kind of expose the deal. Like, this is what you can expect. It's sort of almost like what to expect when you're expecting, what to expect when you're selling. Right. We will take a seller right through that process so that when they're ready to sell, they'll know what they're in for in terms of the marketplace.
Okay, perfect. Now with associates, what juicy pineapple information can you give them to get them ready for ownership? Because a lot of times they may just be toying with the idea, or they actually are gung-ho that in the next year, I'm going to be buying a practice. What can they do to really set themselves up for success?
Yeah, for associates, the biggest thing that I can say is obviously, once you've got your team in place, then do your research. You're working in a clinic right now. Figure out what you like and what you don't like about that leadership style. Obviously, there isn't a lot of education around leadership within your practice. And everyone wants to take a lot of CE courses around the technical components of dentistry because they need to in order to better their dentistry. But I would say some of the tidbits that are not well known out there is take more leadership classes, read more leadership books, actually develop a business plan. Say, look, if I was going to build or buy a practice right now, this is what I'd want to do. So when they get in the headspace of a buyer and they're walking through a practice, they can see, okay, well, that works, that works, that works. That doesn't work, but this is how I can change it. That's not perfect for me, but I can kind of live with that, because they're never going to walk onto like a car lot where they can just order a high hygiene with a retail strip mall in the northwest of Calgary, because that's what everyone wants. You know, on our buyers list in Calgary, someone will call us up and say, oh, I want a Northwest Calgary practice with a great hygiene program and a retail strip mall.
And you're like, so does everybody else.
So does everybody else. Yeah. If I had 26 of them, we could sell them next weekend.
Right.
So, you know, I'd say it's be educated and understand what you're buying, and understand what you're looking at from an appraisal standpoint, understand how to read the numbers, understand what you're going to do differently to lead, and then, of course, how you stand out as a buyer in terms of when you put your offer in. It's not a lowball offer that's going to get dismissed, and you're continually walking to the table with lowball offers, and you're never getting a chance to buy, but the practices still keep getting sold for that.
Right. Yeah. So you want to be a pineapple when you're being a buyer, because well, you're going to be dealing with lots of the different brokers, so you need to actually have a good reputation with the brokers as well, because then they're going to want to deal with you. Yeah. If you're a pain in the butt, not so much, right?
Yeah, you got to be fair and honest with them too, and I always look to the associates and say, oh, this wasn't right for me, why? I always want to know why that practice didn't work, so that the next time around, we're not bringing them something that's, you know, still the same thing, same issues for them.
And if they're looking to buy their first practice, should they be having a wish list of what they want, but still be amenable to, it's not going to be the perfect practice, right?
Yeah. I sort of equate it to when we first moved to Calgary years ago. We said, we're coming from Ontario, so we want to buy a house with this, this, and this, and air conditioning. And our rep said, you might as well put air conditioning in. So buying a practice is very much like that. You can have your wish list, but then understand wherever you're buying in Saskatoon, you're buying in Edmonton, you're buying in Winnipeg, you know, Vancouver, you might be waiting a long time for that retail strip mall location in that premium area. Or you might be able to say, hey, geez, you know what, this area is close enough, I can actually move my house there easier than I can move my practice. So you may find a practice in an area that doesn't. So don't limit yourself, I always say, to just one area, because that's where you like to live in. I've seen guys commute to areas and have fantastic practices, and they've commuted for 25 years, driving across down Crowchild and across Glenmore, or over to West Hastings when they actually live over by UBC.
So it's really about designing, like once you're in there, you can design your life to make it work with the practice. That's if you get the right kind of practice.
Yeah, get your practice, set it up the way you want to, and then if it means you move closer to your practice, because if proximity is a big issue, proximity is not an issue. If you like to work in Toronto but live in Barrie, you know you're going to commute every day. Right. But you'll be by the lake on the weekend.
True story.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up today?
I think in terms of being a buyer, being a seller, I think it's just kind of being out there looking for a clean, honest deal to take place, and it's looking for the win-win. You know, looking for, because both sides are going to have to give on something, and understanding what your risks are when you're giving on those items is a key component. But know that you will have to give on one or two of the items that you're looking for. Even though in a seller's market it's great, that seller is still not getting absolutely everything they're looking for in a lot of cases.
Perfect. So Darren, it's been a pleasure having you here today. Where can people reach out to either hire you as a broker or discuss their options?
They can go to our website, availdentaladvice.com. They can reach us at 1-866-GO-AVAIL, or email us at darren@availdentaladvice.com.
Wonderful.
And check out our website. We've got lots of testimonials on there, and we've got lots of questions and answers. So we've got lots of videos on there so people can kind of do their research, do their homework on some of the questions they might have independently at their own time as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for taking the time out today to come and let us ask you questions and be in the pink seat.
Always a pleasure, and to be on the pink seat, this is my first time, and you're not making me do dance moves that I really have no idea what I'm doing. Nobody wants to see that. Thank you very much.